Hi, I'm Lee.
And I'm Brandon.
And this is That's What He Said. And we're talking football, college football.
And really not just college football, more in line with the SEC. As you can tell, a Tennessee fan and obviously an Alabama fan. Look at the decor back here. Two guys that just love when Saturdays come in the fall. Two guys that love talking about the matchups, everything that's going to happen, and that's what you're going to get on this show. I may wear a hat every now and then. I may not. He may wear a hat every now and then, but he may not. So you never know. We're going to keep you guessing.
And we got this idea when we were on the beach in Florida talking college football, and people started wanting us to answer questions like, who do you think is the dark horse for college football this year? Or who do you think is going to be the worst team in the SEC? And several of our answers were the same. So obviously, clearly, we're both geniuses. So that's why we decided to do this show. And Brandon, who's right here, Lee, who's right here, Brandon is going to go ahead and get us started with some college football since we're fresh off the first week. The most wonderful time of the year.
And what was even great is, you look forward to it starting on the Thursday night, the primetime game. Even though it's not a big matchup, you've got Texas A&M against Northwestern State. Jimbo Fisher making his debut in the land of Aggie land in the 12th man. Primetime, no other SEC game on. 59-7 over a Northwestern State team. Probably, definitely covering the spread there if you're betting on A&M. But thoughts overall on Jimbo's first game?
Well, first of all, we had Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and we had Sunday night, and then we had a Monday night game.
Yeah.
What was that? That was Virginia
Florida
Tech.
State absolutely getting manhandled by Virginia Tech.
And you asked me what my thoughts were on
Jimbo Fisher's first game as the Texas A&M coach.
It was about what I expected.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it wasn't like I was blown away, but it was also well put together. The players played hard. They seemed really calculating and like they were well coached, which shouldn't surprise anybody. As an Alabama fan, I'm not super thrilled that he's the coach at A&M.
Well, we'll get to Alabama in just a minute.
And that's respect.
It is
his
respect.
way. I've never seen a team of his where he was involved in the program.
Right.
That it didn't seem like it was just quality from top to bottom and the width of the team and everything.
Jimbo Fisher, obviously known as a very good quarterback developer. He's got a good one in Kellen Mond the other night. 200 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Very, very solid. The running game, Travion Williams, absolutely going off for over 240 yards, 3 touchdowns. The Aggie defense just playing incredible. Week 1, good signs.
Yep, and they have, let's see, who does A&M have? They have Clemson, right? We were just talking about
Clemson coming to town. The number 2 team in the country coming to town week 2 here. So definitely we'll talk predictions and that kind of stuff later as well. Let's flip back to a game here real quick that kind of got us started on Saturday. Georgia, the number 3 team in the land, falling just short to these guys. In the national championship game, arguably one of the better teams I've seen. Being a Tennessee fan, we have to see Georgia and Alabama every year, and seeing those two in the national championship game. What a national championship game that was, first of all. Again, we're going to talk plenty of Alabama, but just on Georgia's side, you've got to feel good with a 13-0 lead against Alabama. Jake Fromm. Just, nobody even remembers who the quarterback was for Georgia before Fromm. Can you tell me who he was?
I lost track of the Georgia quarterbacks at Stafford. That's how bad.
When Tennessee throws the Hail Mary back in 2016, there was a guy that did a YouTube thing similar to this, and when Georgia threw their Hail Mary with 10 seconds left, it was Jacob Eason, and Jacob Eason Christ was the name of the guy who he referred him to. So no more Jacob Eason now. He transfers out to Washington. Jake Fromm is the guy now. Jake Fromm, Eason gets hurt in the second game last year. Fromm comes in, takes the reins, and Fromm has never looked back. 157 yards, against an Austin Peay team that, just collecting a check. Let's just be honest.
It was a tune-up game.
It was very much a tune-up game. McCole Hardman with a touchdown. Justin Fields, though, is the one I want to talk a little bit about. He's the quarterback, the highly touted 5-star that Georgia was able to get signed with them. He's already playing in the first half of this game when they're up 31-0. So obviously, probably not a quarterback battle, but at the same time, definitely somebody that you want to keep your eye on.
Oh, they learned their lesson. I mean, they had to put Fromm in because there were injuries. I mean, you
Yeah.
never know when that main guy's going to be taken out. And we saw the same thing, not to jump ahead, with Alabama, when we saw a very talented Tua Tagovailoa, and that's just fun to say, a very talented Tua Tagovailoa step in.
Say it one more time.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Tagovailoa, okay.
Tagovailoa. And he's showing no weaknesses. He looks like he's having fun, and he's way ahead of the defense, at least in his mind. And then we see Jalen Hurts come in early, and we say him a lot. And then the famous line at the end of the game where Saban said, "I'm not going to disrespect either one of them, so quit asking me." Alabama and Nick Saban have learned about the injury bug at quarterback, so that's why they're keeping two going and keeping experience at that position. You never know, because that's how Tua was replacing a starter. And Alabama has had plenty of starting quarterbacks go down with all kinds of problems. A lot of quarterbacks have been Joe Theismann, maybe not that bad, but the SEC seems to have the worst luck of it about losing starting quarterbacks. And so I think they're all learning you got to get a few in there, even though the media position is they'll say if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks. And I don't think that's true. I think you can use two quarterbacks.
Steve Spurrier did it for several years at Florida.
Spurrier did it. Bryant.
Doug Johnson,
Back in
Jesse
the
Palmer, Rex Grossman, a combination of all those guys. I mean,
a well-coached, deep team who can adjust, especially if you are able to get leads on other teams,
right,
and put another guy in there. I mean, how can you not? In these days of hard-hitting injuries, you might need that guy in. So
exactly,
it makes perfect sense for Georgia to do it. And what little I saw of that, I thought he looked really poised and like he was comfortable in the game.
He did. Now, obviously, we're going to talk more about Alabama, as we said. Everybody knows not to ask the quarterback question, including Maria Taylor. Wow. We have been told that Saban and Maria Taylor have spoken. They have hashed that out. So that's all good there. Georgia does have a great Week 2 matchup coming up at South Carolina. Okay, South Carolina 49-15 over Coastal Carolina. Again, a game South Carolina covered the spread. Jake Bentley 250 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. That South Carolina defense is for real under Muschamp. They are for real. So this week, I mean, obviously this is going to be a closer game, I think, than what everybody thinks. I think Georgia probably still comes out on top. I don't want to get too far because we are going to make picks here at the end. But a good week 2 matchup coming. Let's move along real quick to number 9 Auburn in Mercedes-Benz against number 6 Washington.
What a game.
What a low-scoring game. I mean, you look at the fast-paced offense that Gus Malzahn has brought ever since he was a coordinator at Auburn and then gets the head coaching job. They've been fast-paced forever.
And the talent returning at quarterback for Auburn, I was really surprised this was a low-scoring game. I thought that both teams would score pretty well. I thought Auburn would win by more than they did. And I really thought Auburn would throw up 30 points or more. They didn't. First week.
Jared Stidham, solid 273 through the air, the 1 touchdown pass. The catch in the end zone to the tight end, my goodness, going up, flipping over, landing on his back.
They like to show that replay the whole game, and every time I thought he was going to miss it. I thought he was going to drop the ball. Every time I saw it replayed,
right,
it was something. We're going to see a lot more of that guy if he can make catches like that.
More.
Just throw it his way and let him find a way
to get there. And the fact that a tight end is matched up against a defensive back, I mean, and winning that matchup. Yep. And not, again, this is SEC, but, the counterpart there, Jake Browning at Washington, he throws for 300 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, it wasn't like the Washington offense just went stagnant or anything.
He looked really strong up until the end. And then, he had that look in his eyes. There was desperation, there was panic, and I had that feeling that Washington was going down. And sure enough, the turnover.
The turnover at the end was big. Auburn's defense rose to the occasion. Next matchup was number 17 West Virginia against Tennessee and Charlotte. Obviously, being a big UT fan, I've had this one circled for a long time. Not just because it's the first game of the Jeremy Pruitt era and that whole fiasco that took place on Rocky Top back in December, January, trying to find a coach. So Tennessee takes on number 17 West Virginia in Charlotte. SEC Nation went on the road, which this is just a personal opinion of mine, of course. I'm going to ask you, though. When SEC Nation, we all know what College Game Day is and how they go to the sites. They pick the winners and what have you there. SEC Nation, when they go to a game, isn't the goal kind of to pick the team, the SEC team, to win the game? Paul Feinbaum, Marcus Spears, Tim Tebow, all pick West Virginia. Auburn and Washington are just right down the road. To me, it was just odd that they went to Charlotte and broadcast live from Charlotte, and nobody picking Tennessee to win when they all could have gone to the Auburn game. I thought that was very interesting. But needless to say, there was nothing that could have stopped Will Grier. Tennessee fans, you remember Will Grier from his days as a Florida Gator, the infamous 4th and 14 conversion in 2015. Hits Callaway for the big touchdown. Florida goes up with a minute to go in the game. Tennessee loses. Tennessee fans still remember Will Grier, nothing short of just spectacular Saturday. 429 yards through the air, 5 touchdowns, and he's got one of the best receivers in the country, David Sills. Tennessee all day could just not get to him. Could not create any kind of a pass rush. The only time we did get to him is if we, were able to run around a little bit. And I'll point something out here. Whenever we talk about, Lee and I talk about our teams, I think it's okay to say we.
Sure.
I think it's okay to say we. But again, Tennessee never gets any kind of defensive consistency with coming after Will Grier, the secondary, very young, obviously, under a new coach, and losing several to graduation. 40-14 is your final score. The game was 13-7 at halftime. The first quarter completely belonged to West Virginia. Tennessee finally got into it, figured out some things on the offensive line, and late in the first quarter and the early second quarter, and put together a 16-play, almost 8.5-minute drive. If you're a Tennessee fan, that's old school Tennessee like you love seeing, and that's hopefully things like that are in store for us.
Yeah, when you're going against an established system, West Virginia, an established system with depth, I'm saying this in sympathy as one SEC fan to another, that we haven't seen Tennessee yet under this new system. We haven't. It's way too early.
We haven't.
This is the most competitive thing in the world when you're talking about elite college football, and people really take it for granted, especially Alabama fans. We're some of the worst as far as Saban, for example, is a victim of his own success. If he doesn't win the national championship, everybody thinks the year's a failure. And nobody has any idea, well, I take that back, a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't have any idea of how difficult it is to be competitive and win. And it's just going to take some time. It's a new system against a system with a lot of depth. So it wasn't like I dismissed Tennessee after that game. I don't think we've seen Tennessee. We probably won't see Tennessee for a year or two as it can be under a new program, new head coach.
Right.
So Tennessee fans
a lot of good
patient.
things, though. Still some good things to come out of that. I thought the quarterback play was well. When the offensive line did give him time, Garantano throws for right at 200 yards. Touchdown on the long drive on 4th and goal, which I like Jeremy Pruitt. Hey, I believe in you guys. We could have 3 here, but let's see if we can get 7.
Now talk for a minute about some news that you were not too thrilled about at all recently, just a few minutes ago before we started this program,
right,
which was the loss of new Tennessee center and Alabama transfer, going down for the season with an ACL.
Torn ACL. Yeah. Brandon Kennedy was just confirmed just a little while ago through ESPN that he will miss the remainder of the season with a torn ACL. Didn't play his best game starting out Saturday. Still working his way. That's one thing Jeremy Pruitt talked a little bit about as well. Is this offensive line, three of them have never really played together. Trey Smith was out in the spring. Kennedy didn't get here till the summer. And, this is a group, the more they play together, they get that continuity and they kind of gel together. They definitely can get better as a unit with all 5 guys playing the same positions, and then something like this happens.
I actually think they're really talented.
I think they can be. The good news is in the spring, they still had a center, but Kennedy was not there yet, obviously. So, it is an easy fix. Is it a blow? It's definitely a blow. It's a setback, but hopefully they can recover from that moving forward. I think that the next game we're going to talk about, definitely one of the more surprising games of the weekend, I thought. Ole Miss I mean, wow, going down to Houston, playing a neutral site game against the Red Raiders at Texas Tech, 47-27. Now, if you watched any of that game, did you watch any of it?
Not all of it, but I watched enough because, as we've talked about before, I'm a big fan of the old ball coach at Ole Miss. I'm a big fan.
So, if you watch the first 5 minutes of this game, both teams have already got 14 points on the board, including a kickoff return for a touchdown. Now, that's very interesting, too. What do you think about this new kickoff rule where you can fair catch the ball anywhere inside the 25-yard line and get the ball there? I mean, obviously, we get the reasons why, the safety precautions, so many of these hits, so many of these helmet-to-helmet, so many of these targeting calls happen on these special teams play, where you've got these returners back here, standing idle, waiting for a punt, waiting for a kickoff, bloop kick, and you got these guys flying at them from the other team going 1,000 miles an hour. What are your thoughts on that new rule?
Well, it might just save some lives, and it might save some guys from hobbling around when they're in their 50s and 60s. I think it makes sense because you can do it on a punt. Why not fair catch? Because, you and I both played high school football, and there were times when I would look up and it would be Friday night lights, and the lights glare and all these other things, and you lose the track of the ball. There's all kinds of things that could cause safety concerns, and you could take some gruesome hits. You could drop the ball and get hit because once it drops, it's live, and you can be blocked out of the way. And especially if you're looking up and then get hit, you're in a very dangerous vulnerable
Absolutely.
position. So I think it's a good call. Once I learned about the new rule, I was a little bit confused at first, but once I saw it in action and I said, okay, that's what's going on, I thought it made sense. I kind of wondered why it hadn't been done before, to be honest with you.
Right.
What do you think about it?
I'm kind of the same mindset. Obviously, those are the exciting moments. You think back. I'll give you an example. You think back to the Alabama-Clemson national championship game a couple of years ago. Clemson scores to make it, I believe, a 3-point game, and they kick off. Was it Kenyon Drake?
I'm sure it was. If he return man,
I may be wrong on that as far as who it was, but he took one to the house, and just the electricity, just what that brings. That you watch the sideline as it's clear he's going to score. Just the eruption on the sideline. So you don't get those kinds of plays by just making the fair catch now. But you have to err on the side of caution.
But now, just to clarify, those big plays still can happen.
They can still happen. Everybody's got the opportunity to fair catch it or not.
Yeah, because I think this is just more. Someone's going to fair catch it if they don't feel comfortable that they could catch it under duress.
Right.
With guys right there nearby, and they don't want to risk turning the ball over.
I would say Louisville should have fair call every ball Saturday night, but the kicker kicked it out of bounds every time. Anyway, but going back to that Texas Tech game, first of all, Shea Patterson, who? Patterson leaves Ole Miss, goes to Michigan, played okay in his first game against Notre Dame. Big fumble there at the end of the game to seal it for the Irish and everything. But this new kid for Ole Miss just comes in 336 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns. Looked like a poised veteran out there, and he's no small kid at all. A lot of height, a lot of size to him. Scotty Phillips, the running back for Ole Miss, becomes the first back in several years to rush for over 200 yards. He adds 2 scores as well as Ole Miss again rolls over Texas Tech. 47-20-27. Former tight end coach underneath David Cutcliffe, finally getting his opportunity. Hugh Freeze and the debacle that went on at Ole Miss. Matt Luke steps in, does a good job first year. They offer him the head coach. Just a great story.
Coach Luke at Ole Miss was somebody that I just admired right away. I really liked the guy. When they would call him interim head coach, I was really hoping they'd change it to head coach because, like I said, he wants to be there. He is in love with Ole Miss football. He feels at home, just like Dan Mullen said he feels at home at Florida. And there's something to be said for that. And I, as an Alabama fan, I hope looks like Saban feels at home in Alabama. The rumors haven't in the last couple of years. We used to hear Saban was going to Texas. We used to hear Saban was going to Cleveland. We used to hear Saban was going to USC. Even people said that Georgia. I heard Georgia. Saban was going to, but he has. What I've been told is that everywhere he's had a coaching job, he's had a bust of Bear Bryant, and that he saw Alabama as the place he wanted to end his career. And it looks like he's going to do that. When you get a coach who feels like he's going to end his career there, and he's not just using it as a stepping stone, I think that's when you really see some amazing things. And I think Coach Luke could bring Ole Miss to where they want to be in the SEC. I think they're going to be somebody you can't just take lightly like you have in the past. I mean, they looked incredible.
To throw something else into that, the SEC West just way more competitive now than the SEC East.
Oh, yeah.
So how much harder that is, knowing those guys you got to play, every year. You brought up an interesting point, and I want to ask you, better Alabama coach. You guys weigh in on this too. I want to know your thoughts. The Bear or Saban?
He's asking me that week one. If we're looking just at what he has accomplished in the era that he accomplished it in, I would say that Saban is, based on the competition you see nowadays, which is so elite. The technology is advancing, training guys. I mean, quarterbacks are working with virtual reality systems constantly to be able to recognize defenses.
Cameras on the helmets, all that technology they can take from the practice field, look at it afterwards. Yeah.
Kids are training from 5, 6 years old to be college football players. It's a different world. It's a more competitive world. And Saban, what he has accomplished, I think, is greater than what Bryant accomplished. But hey, who's to say if Bryant did not grow up in the same time period that Saban did and get his coaching chops, same time period Saban did, that he wouldn't be accomplishing this. But if we're just looking in terms of what has been accomplished, Saban's already tied Bryant. And he's making a decent argument right now that he'll be back in the national title game this year, meaning he passes.
I think you're making a decent argument right now as well. But again, we're going to come back to Alabama here in just a little bit. Let's move ahead to Mississippi State. Joe Moorhead becoming the new head coach. Moving into the cowbell atmosphere. Okay, they take on Stephen F. Austin, another tune-up game, as you'd say, 63-6. Mississippi State with over 400 yards throwing, over 200 yards on the ground. Obviously, offensively, things rolling down and startable.
Yeah, and of course, you do have to consider the opposing team there and the tune-up game aspect. There's really not a lot to say about it. I didn't even care. I just really thought it was going to be a big blowout like it was. 66 on the board. They haven't played anybody yet. We don't really know a whole lot.
Right. So let's come back to down in Nashville. Vandy gets a 35-7 win over MTSU, Middle Tennessee State. Those two schools separated by 30-40 miles. Kyle Shermer, 170 yards throwing, 2 touchdowns. Kalijah Lipscomb, a receiving touchdown. Kind of, those two are the 1-2 punch. Those two have the best chemistry, quarterback, receiver. Really, I think the focus, though, is Derek Mason's defense. The one that he came from Stanford, the defense he built at Stanford, the defensive coordinator in himself, is Vanderbilt's defense for real this year. Now, if you remember, last year, doesn't really matter if it's an offensive player or a defensive player. Vanderbilt starts out 3-0 with the Tide coming to town, and a statement gets made. We're ready for Bama. And then what was the final score in that game last year? Was it 59-0 Alabama?
There was some.
I may be wrong on that, but it was a whole lot for Alabama and nothing for Vanderbilt at all. But that's the past, obviously. For what Vanderbilt's been able to do this year in the offseason, keeping everybody relatively healthy, is Vanderbilt's defense finally ready to make a statement in the SEC?
I hope so. I'm a closet Vanderbilt fan, unless they're playing Alabama. And I hope so. I've had high hopes for Derek Mason, and I even coached flag football in his league a few years ago and shook his hand. He and I knew each other, and I really thought a lot of him. I've always thought he'd be a success at Tennessee, but as I've said before, it is tough. I mean, to come in the SEC and coach, it's insane. The competition, the money that's put into preparing teams, preparing players, and the coaches just have to be on top of every detail. So when coaches don't come out right out of the blocks and win, they're up against other systems that have depth, that have practice under their belts, that have games under their belts, and know the system better. And now, he's beginning to hit that time in his coaching career at Vanderbilt where the excuses are gone. They don't have credibility anymore. And we're going to see Vanderbilt under Derek Mason now without the excuses. So I'm hopeful because I do like to watch Vandy and I pull for them a lot. Now,
is Vanderbilt a 7-win team in 2018?
Yeah, I think Vanderbilt will win 7 games this year. I think they'll beat a bowl game, and it's going to be fun. Hope it snows, because I'd like to watch when Vandy plays in the bowl games, and there's been very few that I've gotten to see. But I think that they're going to win 7 games, and I think they're going to have a surprise win that they're not even given a chance for this game. In the SEC, I think they'll beat an SEC team like a Mississippi State or an Arkansas.
Let's hope not.
That they don't expect to win and people just discount them. I think that's going to happen. I think that'll be something we'll be talking about in a few weeks.
So let's transition kind of here to a 7-win team here. A lot of people thinking the guys down in Baton Rouge might not win more than 7 or 8 games this year. What an opening statement for LSU and Ed Orgeron. And I mean, just...
Yeah.
I mean, I 24-3 halftime, or 27-3 at halftime, whichever it was. They got after it. LSU's defense absolutely took the game over. Mike Rozier at Miami had nowhere to go with anything. They completely stopped Miami's running game. The pick six early in the second half sealed it.
Now, Orgeron is another guy. He's an opposing team. He's a rival, especially Alabama LSU became a bigger rivalry than it had been since Saban had the history of LSU. But Orgeron, Coach Orgeron. Thank you for the correction. Orgeron. Coach Orgeron at LSU is another guy who wanted to be there. I mean,
he's from there.
Yeah. You can tell when he talks. It's a beautiful thing.
He loves gumbo.
He loves
Red Bull.
The Tigers, and just like Coach Luke at Ole Miss, and just like Dan Mullen at Florida, these guys want to be there. I'm telling you, watch out for the coach who wants to be there, because there's more than a paycheck. He's got pride on the line. He's got a love of team. And so I picked LSU to win, and I didn't have any doubts about it. I thought it was a little bit ridiculous, to be honest with you, that anybody was saying it would be any other way. I really felt like it was going to be what it was.
Well, speaking of that, so you've got Mark Richt obviously back at his school, where he went to school at Miami, the former Georgia Bulldog coach. A lot of people are thinking the same thing with Mark Richt. A couple of games here and there over the last year or two that they just shouldn't have lost. Is this, in your opinion, one of the games that Miami should have won, or is LSU just that dominant?
I think that LSU is that dominant. I think LSU is very, very good. I think that Mark Richt at Georgia underperformed based on the talent that he had. I think he should have won more games. He goes down to Miami, and he has a great year. But you know what? There were a lot of games I think he overperformed. I think some of those players overperformed. It could have gone either way, and they ended up winning. I think that their ranking was a little overinflated, and the expectations were inflated. And I think that we might have to start asking the question if maybe the game has kind of passed them by a little bit.
Right. So what does that say about the SEC overall? I mean, Mark Richt at Georgia's winning 9 games a year, 10 if they get into when they either win or lose the SEC championship game. Point is that they were there most every year, aside from Florida having a couple of good seasons, and Missouri having a great year and going to face Auburn, who ended up playing for the championship that year. And then he goes to Miami, and there's not as much pressure to win 10 games there. What does that say overall about the SEC?
I think it's what you and I know. The SEC is
the best
conference
in the country.
Yeah, in the country, with the most talent, the most speed, depth, size, strength. And we, here in the South, I mean, it's a focus. It's the most important as far as the sports that are played in the South. I think that college football gets the most emphasis and the most money and the most attention. So it doesn't surprise me at all. But yeah, he goes down there, and then after having the year he had last year, comes and plays LSU with a second-year coach that some people maybe thought didn't deserve to be named the head coach, even though I thought he did, and I was really pulling for him, and I like it every time he talks. I make everyone in the room be quiet so I can listen. I like the guy, and if you notice this about Orgeron, after the game, he goes and he shakes the other coach's hand. You watch how many hands he shakes. He shakes the policeman's hand. He shakes assistant. I mean, he stays out there and shakes hands. He's a classy guy, and so I like him. I like to pull for them.
Loves what he does.
Don't want them to beat Alabama. Don't want them to beat Kentucky just because. But I think he's the real deal, and I hate that we're going to have to be playing them like we have been, because I think he's going to have the program back to where it was 3 or 4 years ago when they were a real threat for the national championship.
So we talk about a couple of 2-year coaches. Let's get into a couple of first-year guys. Chad Morris making the jump from SMU, coming up to Arkansas, 55-20 winner over Eastern Illinois and Fayetteville. Obviously not a whole lot you can probably take from that one as well. We talked about the strength of schedule, but you're still lining up scoring 55 points.
I like SEC football. I just do. Some people, it's like they have their team in the SEC and they hate all the other teams. I like watching the games, even if I don't like the teams. I am most interested in him at Arkansas. I just want to see what happens because his record, he should be good. I mean, Arkansas should be, with the talent he's going to get at Arkansas versus SMU, this should be good. And again, I don't want to play Arkansas in 2 or 3 years. I think he's going to be able to recruit, and I think he's going to make great decisions as a coach, and he's going to have them prepared every week, and we're not going to see what we saw last year, which was Arkansas showing up to games where we thought they had a chance to win and getting beat by 30 points. I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see them stay in the games, and they're going to fight, and they're going to finish, and they're going to win more games than they did last year. I think they'll win 6 games this year.
Right. Definitely think it's possible. Another first-year guy, kind of your guy, guy that a lot of people are thinking is going to bring the University of Florida back. Dan Mullen returning home after his stay in Mississippi State. Florida, really a no contest, a 53-6 winner over Charleston Southern. Again, the strength of schedule there, but make no mistake about it, Florida's still got some talent. Felipe Franks, 219 yards, 5 touchdown passes. That may be a little misleading, but still, the Dan Mullen era is off and running at Florida. What happens this year for Florida?
He's another example of a coach. I think he's got a program now that, this is no offense to Mississippi State at all, but he has a program as far as the talent that deserves him. I think he's a great coach. I think he's gonna hit the ground running. I think he already has. And I think Florida is going to very quickly be back to the team that other SEC teams fear playing.
Very, very, very quickly.
He wants it. Dan Mullen is one of the hardest working coaches in college football. He wants to be there. He's going to be able to recruit. He's always been able to recruit, even at Mississippi State. Players like him. He's a player's coach. It's not that I want to see this because I want Alabama to beat everybody, but I'm telling you, he's got all the boxes checked. And I think Florida is going to be back to getting to major bowl games, competing for the SEC, 2 years, easy.
Could very well happen. Again, the Dan Mullen era off and running. Let's go to Missouri. Missouri taking on UT Martin this weekend with a 51-14 winner. A lot of new faces there as far as the players. Obviously not much of a contest by a lot of people's standards, but a lot of new faces with several of the players for Missouri, but more notably their offensive coordinator name both of our teams know, Derek Dooley, back in the SEC, calling the plays for Drew Lock. Drew Lock, one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, big tall frame, big strong arm. Emmanuel Hall, former CPA Lion, with a big game, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns, Lock over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. So obviously things are clicking. Now last year, things clicked a lot for the Missouri offense.
Yeah,
they were very up there at the top in the league as far as being able to score.
Surprised a lot of people. Yeah, they were almost beginning to be using the same sentences of Vanderbilt or Kentucky as far as how they finished the last few years, but man, what a statement last year was, and we'll see what happens going forward, especially with the Dooley back in the SEC. That'll be interesting. I don't know what to say about that. Right. It's just an interesting thing for him to be there.
For him to be there, and as a coordinator, not necessarily as a head coach. Kentucky gets a 35-20 win over Central Michigan. Benny Snell, solid. As long as Benny Snell can keep the hands off an official and not get thrown out of a game, Benny Snell will be one of the top running backs in the SEC.
Yeah, and you know what? I know it's just Central Michigan, but it's a solid Central Michigan, and I think this is a solid win.
If you remember last year, Central Michigan, or actually I guess it was 2 years ago now, Central Michigan throws the Hail Mary on the last play against Oklahoma State. They catch it, get in the end zone, and you never know. That's the thing, though. And that's what we've talked about so many times. College football, whether it's an SEC matchup, non-conference, whatever, it just doesn't matter. Just the excitement of it in games like that can go down to the wire, a Hail Mary. We've all been on the winning and losing end of a Hail Mary. But yeah, Kentucky is this, but more specifically, Mark Stoops has been there several years now, right? Is this make or break for Mark Stoops at this point? Now, a lot of people said, with the Kentucky, you need to be beating Tennessee, you need to be beating Vanderbilt every year, the games you feel like you ought to be able to win. Last year, they were able to take care of Tennessee. Stephon Johnson with just an unreal fourth quarter for Kentucky. Kentucky pulled out a victory against Tennessee. They rushed the field. What does Mark Stoops have to prove this year offensively and defensively? Defensively, I feel like they're going to be a little bit better. Offensively, you've got Snell. Where does Kentucky's offense go at this point?
Well, first of all, anybody who says Kentucky hasn't improved the Stoops era has not been an improvement. I don't think you're paying attention. I think that they've been taken more seriously under Stoops. It may not show as much as reality on paper.
Right.
The on paper is,
right.
If you're just looking at it, it's not just startlingly impressive. But for those of us who really pay attention, I think we would say Kentucky has been stronger and they're more of a threat. I think he's been able to develop players a lot more than some of his predecessors. But, is he on the hot seat? I would say so, just from the Kentucky fans and the administration. Is that right?
Yeah.
We're going to call it
the administration.
The administration there at Kentucky.
People that do the hiring and firing.
Yeah, but I don't think that means that he's got to go out and win 10 games. I think that if he's able to demonstrate that they're competitive and that they do win, that's a little bit of improvement. I think he'll be fine, but I think that he can't just sit comfortably.
Right.
It's within Stoops' grasp to stay there and have a good career there. And, it would not surprise me if they won 6 games and got into a bowl game this year.
That was going to be my next question. Do they win? Can they win 6?
I look at the schedule. I see 6. I see 6 they can win. They might win a couple more if they got lucky. But I think it would be really cool, again, to have the cold days of winter with both Vanderbilt and Kentucky in a bowl game. And I think it's going to happen. We'll know here in a couple months. I think they're going to get the 6.
Well, cold for those two teams, right? It was hot down in Orlando, where the defending national champion Alabama Crimson Tide took on Louisville, 51-14. Obviously, a lot of firepower on offense. The defense we'll get to in just a minute. But the pregame is buzzing around one thing: who's the quarterback going to be? On one hand, you've got the quarterback who's had a 27-2 record as your starter. And Jalen Hurts, just a phenomenal athlete, can run with the ball, can put the ball where it needs to be. Over the last couple of years, even when Lane Kiffin's the offensive coordinator, he's had multiple weapons to throw to. I love Jerry Jeudy on the outside. I think he is a phenomenal wide receiver. He's such a great route runner. He just makes things happen.
He's smart, he's disciplined, and he is fast.
Whether it's Jalen back there throwing it or the other guy. Tua. How do you say his last name again?
Tagovailoa.
We got our answer quick as Tua went out with the first group. A lot of rumors floating around that the starting quarterback was named actually on Thursday, that Jalen Hurts supposedly may have held a team meeting on Friday. Only half the team showed up. We're not here to report rumors and all that. That's just what's out there. When you're a team on top like that and you've got 2 good guys out there, I mean, that kind of talk just, I guess, takes care of itself. Tua takes the field. Doesn't take long at all to take him down the field. Great first opening drive, obviously. The second drive, he takes care of himself with the score. They get the ball back before halftime, and just an unreal step up into the pocket and throw.
Oh, yeah.
And it's 21-0. Jalen Hurts hasn't even played yet. So what's the mindset for Saban right there? Obviously, he knows he's playing both of them. Okay, the game is already in hand. Alabama's defense again playing phenomenal. What's the mindset there as far as Saban? How do you differentiate between the two as far as who's going in and why would you take two out?
Well, first of all, Saban's a pretty loyal guy. I mean, the reason that we had Jalen Hurts starting last year, game after game, was because of that. Because this guy's taken us to the national title game. This guy has the experience. This guy doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And Saban's going to be loyal to someone with experience who he feels like is a hard worker, loyal to the program and as a team leader.
27-2.
Now, another rumor is that a lot of the coaching staff would approach Saban and say Tua needs to start, and that it would be a game time decision, and Coach Saban would go with Jalen because, again, he's going to go with experience. He's a loyal guy. So I think that was another reason for the statement after the game. This doesn't bring Saban joy. I think Saban loves his players. He loves Jalen, just like we all do.
I like what he said, and you know, it may have come at the wrong moment with Maria Taylor and everything. I like what he said about, if you're trying to get a sound bite out of me, this is not the direct quote, this is the basic message. I liked what he said. If you're going to try to get a sound bite out of me, praising one guy and not making the other one look great, don't ask it, because I'm not going to do it.
He actually said disrespecting.
And that's exactly, yes.
And you know, that's got to make...
So that tells you how much respect he has for both of those players.
Oh, yeah. And to be an Alabama player or a player who's considering playing for Nick Saban and seeing him respond with anger that you're trying to get me to disrespect these guys who I see work so hard day after day, and he's probably seen blood, sweat, and tears from both of these guys, and you want me to just make one little soundbite, one little line that's going to dismiss one of them? He's not going to do it, because you have a quarterback who's been to 2 national title games, has a national championship under his belt, and you want a disrespectful line. Tua Tagovailoa. I actually spoke with a former starting Alabama quarterback who was MVP of a bowl game.
Let me guess.
I'm not going to name any names, but I spoke with him yesterday, and he actually said to me he thinks Tua Tagovailoa could go down as the greatest quarterback in Alabama history. And he and I spoke a little bit, and I shared with him some of my thoughts on Tua. I said, look, I don't see any weaknesses. I mean, he can do whatever he wants to do. He can throw it. He can run it. He can read everything. He reads it before they even do it. He's a great mind for a quarterback, and he's got a body to match it, and he's got an arm that is as strong as it is accurate. And I said, am I seeing this right? That how do you prepare for a guy? You can't scheme against him because he doesn't do one thing better than the other. He does everything exceptionally well. So your defense basically just has to do everything exceptionally well against him. And I said, am I seeing this right? And that's when he said he thinks Tua could go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks Alabama's ever had. So saying that means that Jalen Hurts is having to go up against that and having to beat that. So,
but at the same time there, as you just said, there's no way for defenses to prepare for what Tua has. You got to prepare for both of them.
Right.
I don't care if it's Auburn, if it's Georgia, if it's any of the other non-conference opponents Alabama's going to play. You have to prepare for both of them because you're going to see both of them one way or the other.
Yeah, and as we talked about earlier, look, Tua, God forbid, is one hit away from being out for the season. I mean, we see that every week. Somebody, it seems like in college football, is out for the season every week. You got to have, in this day and time especially, you got to have that guy behind him ready to go, as Tua was ready to go in the national title game and stepped up with really no game time experience. I mean, very little. Maybe some mop-up duty here and there. And he goes into the national title game
gets told at halftime by his position coach, hey, you're going to go start the second half.
Playing against Georgia.
Imagine the emotions. Yeah, imagine it.
Now, was Georgia the number 1 or 2 ranked defense in the nation last year?
Number 2 ranked, I believe.
So you've got Tua, no meaningful playing time, only mop-up duty, goes into the national title game down by 20 against the number 2 ranked defense in the country and wins. So is it any surprise he started? Was there really a debate? We'll never know because, like you said, there's all these rumors floating around. I haven't heard a rumor that Saban was going to just let the players pick who started. I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona that you can buy if you buy that one. But I think we saw a lot out of Alabama going against Louisville. I think we see the pieces of a national title.
I'll tell you the thing, not that speaking of that national title, the only other game they've played, their last game was the win over Georgia.
Yeah.
You know, one of the reasons Saban's upset at the very end of the game, he's upset about how they finished the game, the points that they gave up at the end, the penalties, that kind of stuff. This guy just doesn't ever stop coaching. You know, I mean, he's exciting to watch. So obviously Nick Saban, very focused, very poised to make another title run. with this right here, obviously in the comments boxes and everything like that, we want y'all's feedback. Again, we're just two guys up here that love sitting around talking ball and everything. If we don't talk enough about your team, let us know. We'll make sure that we do that. Obviously, I'm a big UT fan. He's a big Alabama fan. We don't want this to just become, about Tennessee and Alabama, and that's it. Third Saturday in October, that may be a little different story, but we want to make sure that we touch on all the SEC teams and just make it an even more exciting time to talk about how these teams are doing once they get into conference play, where they stand in the conference, and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you're commenting below.
And make sure you click the subscribe button, because if we don't get enough of you subscribing, we're going to quit doing this. No, we probably won't.
We won't.
We'll keep talking to the audience of 4. Hi, Dad. And make sure you click the subscribe button so that you can be notified when we have other videos about college football. And we're going to be talking a lot about college football, and we haven't picked winners.
No, let's get to some picks.
All right.
How about that?
Just when you thought it was over.
Just when you thought it was over. All right. Let's start out with the team we just talked about this weekend. I don't know what the spread is. There's really no point in even looking at this.
It would be cheating to look.
Yes, it would. Arkansas State comes in to Alabama this weekend. Definitely my pick is Alabama. I think it's the same type game as Alabama just played. I think the defense probably has another score in this game. I think you see a whole lot of Tua, and I think you see a whole lot of Jalen Hurts. And if there's a backup quarterback beyond that, I think you may see him too.
We saw him against Louisville. I think we'll see him a lot. Yeah.
Bateman. Was that who it was?
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know. We need to find out, because that's not fair to him. But
He
looked really good.
My apologies. So obviously we're going with
Alabama.
Alabama makes it 2-0. Saturday night, you get Clemson, number 2 team in the land, coming in to take on Jimbo's crew down in Kyle Field at Aggie Land. I honestly, I love picking upsets. I love when I think there's definitely a chance. That atmosphere to play in, that's a pretty crazy atmosphere. How loud the 12th man is, the things that they do there, their kind of traditions that they do throughout the game and everything. I think that keeps Texas A&M in it. Kellen Mond can't turn the ball over in this game. They're going to have to be able to run with Travion Williams. If they can do that, they're still in the game. At the very end, though, I just think it's way too much. Clemson's got a quarterback controversy going on, but in a good way. You'll probably see 2 quarterbacks play for Clemson as well. Their air raid, their defense. Clemson is for real this year, and I think they get it done Saturday night.
Yeah, Clemson. I have to go with Clemson.
Wyoming is coming to take on Missouri. This is one that I think is going to be a lot closer. You lose your quarterback, your all-conference quarterback, to the NFL this past year in Wyoming. But you've got guys that have stayed the course and everything. I think Drew Lock and Missouri end up pulling away and winning in this game. At halftime, this game is close, though.
That's my thoughts exactly. Wyoming's always, the last 10 years, they've been a close game. They just fight. So I think that's what we'll see. But like you worded it well, I think Missouri's going to pull away at the end and win.
It has been absolutely. I was born in '86, and I don't believe this has happened since then. Kentucky and Florida getting together in the swamp. It's been a long time since Kentucky has beaten Florida. Several times in the last couple of years, Kentucky has had Florida beat, and Florida has found a way to get it done and continue the streak. I think this game is a little bit closer. I do think Florida's defense is for real. I think Dan Mullen definitely has these guys ready. That's one thing you don't have to worry about with Mullen. There's never a post hangover from the week before or anything like that. I think Florida pulls away and wins. Again, this is one that I think is going to be closer. If Benny Snell can have a good day on the ground, if Kentucky can get first downs, move the chains, you keep the clock running, shorten the game as much as possible, still be in it in the fourth quarter. You never know what can happen if you can get it in the fourth quarter. I think Florida wins a close game, though.
Yeah, I do think Florida wins. I think it'll be like a 17-point win type of thing. Again, I think you said it well. I think Florida's going to pull away at the end.
Okay. Arkansas is headed to Colorado State Another guy at Colorado State, SEC ties, Mike Bobo, the former Georgia quarterback, former Georgia offensive coordinator, been the coach out there for a couple of years now. To me, this is an interesting game. You saw Colorado State week 1 put up a lot of points against Hawaii. They've definitely got the offense to score. Arkansas's defense, though, we don't really know a whole lot about them. I'm just going to say this is why we do this show. That's why SEC is the best conference. The SEC, I think, will get another one. Arkansas will get
I think Arkansas
a win for sure.
Yeah.
All right, the Wolfpack from Nevada come in to take on Vanderbilt this weekend. This is one where you could see an upset. Now, it's an interesting matchup. You know, Vandy doesn't really play those non-conference opponents like that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm buying into what Derek Mason's selling right now with Shermer at quarterback, with Lipscomb at receiver. And again, what I said earlier, is this going to be Derek Mason's year to make a stance? Now, this may not be the game where you fully see it, but I think they're good enough to beat Nevada.
Yeah, I don't have a good read on Vandy, but I do like Derek Mason, and I do think they'll take care of Nevada just because he's got a system, and there the players know the system, and we have a pretty good idea of the talent that Vanderbilt has. And it's underrated. I think Vanderbilt will take care of this. I think Vanderbilt wins by 14.
We're going to go quickly through this one. Southeastern Louisiana at LSU. LSU.
C.
Big. LSU big.
Yeah.
An intriguing matchup. Mississippi State is going to take on Kansas State and Bill Snyder. Bill Snyder's been there for 80 years, it seems like. Still being able to get bowl eligible most years and everything, still running a clean program, all that kind of stuff. I think Mississippi State's firepower on offense is just going to be too much for Kansas State. This is one that's probably closer at halftime. Both teams kind of figuring each other out. I think Mississippi State wears down Kansas State, and I think they pull away big.
I think it'll be close. I think Mississippi State wins, but I don't think it will be big. I think it will be within a couple touchdowns.
Okay. Southern Illinois at Ole Miss. I'm going to say Ole Miss by 40. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Ole Miss big.
Ole Miss big. Ole Miss big. ETSU comes to Knoxville to visit Tennessee this week. Randy Sanders, the head coach, former quarterback at the University of Tennessee, as well as offensive coordinator. Did you know his first game to be an offensive coordinator was the '98 National Championship game?
I was not aware of that.
Mm-hmm. And he has already made it publicly known in his press conference on Monday. If they were to pull the upset, he will not ride the bus back home. In fact, he will be carrying the goalpost and will walk all the way back, and he probably won't have on any clothes. His words. I think Tennessee figures out some things on offense. Yeah. Obviously, the offensive line's still a big area of concern. The defensive front seven, can they get pressure? ETSU, if they're smart, they're going to get the ball out quick. You're going to see a lot of quick screens, a lot of running back out in the flat quick, receivers downfield blocking. They're going to do everything they can to minimize the mistakes, throwing the ball across the middle, that kind of stuff. Probably see a little bit of read option too. Anything that they can do to try to keep Tennessee off balance. And honestly, we don't know what Tennessee's capable of. Again, and I'm not sure I'm not sure it's good.
Right.
But at the same time, I think Tennessee can come up with a couple of stops. Offensively, I think there'll be a little much, especially in the second half. I think it's a closer game at halftime, but I think Tennessee pulls away late.
Yeah, I think Tennessee wins. I think they have the depth and the athletic talent, and I think that they have some leadership developing. Some guys who are happy the program is having a refreshment and seeing some different days. So I think Tennessee wins pretty big. I think it won't be that difficult. I think they're going to get some guys in for some mop-up duty and get some experience from some of these younger guys that are going to have to step up this year.
So we're both agreeing Jeremy Pruitt gets his first win.
I believe so.
All right.
Yeah.
Alabama State coming to take on Auburn. Auburn big.
Yeah, Auburn big.
Auburn big. Defensive score, a special team score in this game as well. Kind of the game of the week in the SEC, coming down with Georgia and South Carolina. We talked briefly about this one earlier. Jake Fromm, Jake Bentley. So
the Jake.
You got the battle of the Jakes there. You have Kirby Smart, a great defensive-minded coach. Will Muschamp, a very good defensive-minded coach. A lot of similarities there. One of my favorite names, Debo Samuel.
That's a good name.
He's back. Debo is for real. South Carolina is, they're so close. This Georgia, I think everybody is thinking. Georgia not only is going to win, but I think they're thinking they're going to roll over them. South Carolina pulls the upset this week. South Carolina beats Georgia. That's my upset pick of the week.
Wrong.
I will stick by it.
Wrong. Okay, no, finally, we're going to disagree here. Georgia is going to win, and they're going to win, and they're going to win. It's going to be so much winning, you're going to think it's the United States economy. Georgia is going to run all over these guys. They're not going to be able to score against Georgia. I'd be surprised if South Carolina scores 10.
10 points?
10. If they score more than 10, I'm not
I
going to
like
say
it. I like it.
I'll be very surprised if South Carolina scores more than 10. No offense to any South Carolina fans out there. I'm just trying to be real here. I don't think South Carolina can score more than 10 against Georgia. And if they score more than 10,
we shall see.
I'll wear a Tennessee hat for 5 minutes on next week's show.
There we go. So those are our picks for this week. Best of luck to all the teams, obviously. Again, if we didn't touch on your team as much as you would like, or you got questions for us, you want us to give us a shout out to people or certain teams in general, let us know. Again, hit that subscribe button. Put those comments in the comment boxes. We'll be more than happy to take care of it.
Share this with other SEC fans you know of and other college football fans you know of, and use the comment box. Wear out the subscribe button, and watch next week as we'll be talking football. This is That's What He Said. I'm Lee for Brandon, and That's What He Said. Have a good week.
Take care. See y'all.